The lights fade in on a silent Oval Office, but something feels wrong. A velvet-lined box sits alone on the resolute desk, sealed shut. Its gold hinges glint under the lamp. Outside, thunder cracks over Washington, D.C., and for a moment, the most powerful room on Earth feels haunted. Because inside that box isn't a treasure. It's a warning, a reminder of the leaders who failed so badly. Their shadows still stain the presidency. A whisper echoes through history. Do not become one of them. Welcome to the darkest, weirdest, and most unbelievable stories behind the worst presidents in American history. This won't be a class lecture. This is a cinematic journey through chaos, ego scandals, bizarre decisions, and the moments that pushed the nation to the edge. Stick around. The deeper this story goes, the stranger it gets. 1. The president who watched the country fall apart, James Buchanan. Picture America in the late 1850s. The nation isn't just divided, it's cracking like ice under a boot. And at the center of it all sits President James Buchanan, a man whose advisors begged him to act, while he basically shrugged. Buchanan believed the president shouldn't interfere, even when the country was spiraling toward civil war. States seceded. Chaos spread. The Union trembled. And Buchanan? He wrote letters. There's a moment historians rarely dramatize, but it's chilling. Buchanan receives word that yet another state is leaving the Union. Instead of a crisis meeting, he quietly goes upstairs to read in the White House library, convincing himself it wasn't his job to stop it. It's one of the eeriest images in presidential history. A leader watching the nation fracture, almost in slow motion. Buchanan's inaction didn't just make things worse. It handed Abraham Lincoln a country already falling apart. To this day, many consider Buchanan the closest thing America ever had to a do-nothing president at the worst possible moment. But as unbelievable as that sounds, he's not the only one whose decisions shook the country to its core. 2. Andrew Johnson, the president who picked fights with everyone. If James Buchanan let things fall apart, Andrew Johnson poured gasoline on the wreckage. Johnson took office after Lincoln's assassination, a moment that demanded unity, compassion, and smart leadership. Instead, Johnson went full chaos mode. He blocked civil rights protections. He vetoed laws designed to help formerly enslaved Americans. He fired the people trying to fix the country. And he fought with Congress so violently, lawmakers came one vote away from removing him from office. One single vote. Imagine the tension inside the Senate chamber that day. Reporters scribbling, members pacing, the country on edge. If just one senator had flipped, Johnson would have been the first president in history to be kicked out. And here's the unbelievable part. Johnson had locked himself in the White House earlier that morning, convinced he was about to lose everything. But he survived by a razor-thin margin. To many, Johnson wasn't just a bad president. He was a warning about how much damage one stubborn leader can do. But if Johnson was reckless, the next president on our list took recklessness and turned it into something darker. 3. Warren G. Harding, a presidency buried under secrets. Warren G. Harding came into office like a celebrity, handsome, charming, a voice made for radio. America loved him. But behind the scenes, Harding's White House was a maze of scandals, shady deals, secret poker nights, and backdoor favors. His friends, later called the Ohio Gang, practically treated Washington like their personal casino. There's a famous story whispered about Harding's private life inside the White House. And no, nothing inappropriate, but definitely strange. Harding used to sneak away from meetings to play poker, using White House items as chips. One night, he supposedly bet and lost an entire set of presidential china. But the real disaster was the Teapot Dome scandal, where Harding's inner circle secretly sold off government oil reserves. It shook the nation so badly that newspapers called it the greatest political scandal in American history. Harding died suddenly during a trip west, leaving behind a presidency wrapped in mystery. Some said he knew the scandals were closing in. Others whispered he suspected betrayal inside his own cabinet. Whatever the truth, Harding left office with his reputation shattered, and the country demanding answers. And then came a president whose decisions weren't just bad. They lit the fuse on the Great Depression. 4. Herbert Hoover, the president who watched the economy collapse. Herbert Hoover wasn't a villain. He was smart, experienced, and admired by world leaders. But when the stock market crashed in 1929, the moment America needed bold, aggressive action, Hoover hesitated. He believed the economy would self-correct. He believed businesses would voluntarily help the people. He believed the crisis wasn't as bad as it looked. Then reality hit. Factories closed. Banks collapsed. Families lined up for food. Shanty towns built from scraps and cardboard started appearing across America. People called them Hoovervilles. Imagine driving past entire neighborhoods of families living in wooden crates, named after the president. Hoover tried to fix things eventually, but it was too late. Desperation swept the nation. And by 1932, America voted him out in one of the biggest landslides in history. But our list isn't finished, because one president did something no modern leader has ever done, and the consequences were almost explosive. 5. Richard Nixon, a presidency built on power and paranoia. The Nixon White House was a fortress of secrecy, tape recorders and locked doors. Nixon didn't trust his staff. He didn't trust Congress. He didn't even trust the American people. But the real trouble started with a late-night break-in at the Watergate office complex, a burglary that spiraled into the biggest political scandal the country had ever seen. Nixon denied involvement, then denied it again, then denied it even harder. But behind the scenes, he recorded almost everything said in the Oval Office. And those tapes told the truth. When investigators learned about the tapes, Nixon's world began collapsing like a house of cards. Court battles, resignations, public outrage. Finally, cornered by his own recordings, Nixon resigned, the only U.S. president to ever do so. The image of him stepping into the helicopter, flashing that V sign, is one of the most surreal moments in presidential history. A powerful reminder that even leaders at the top can fall hard. But power isn't the only thing that can twist a presidency. Sometimes it's fear. 6. Lyndon B. Johnson, genius, giant, and the president broken by war. LBJ was one of the most complicated leaders America ever had. Brilliant, forceful, persuasive, a political titan. He passed historic civil rights laws, transformed healthcare, lifted millions out of poverty. But then came the Vietnam War, and it consumed everything. Johnson believed pulling out would destroy America's global image. So he kept sending troops, and sending troops, and sending troops, even when he knew deep down the strategy wasn't working. There's a moment preserved in a private recording where Johnson sighs and says, "I can't win and I can't get out." It's haunting. Johnson's presidency became trapped between fear of failure and fear of the truth. And the war tore the nation apart in a way no one could have predicted. By 1968, with protests exploding and trust collapsing, Johnson made a shocking announcement on live TV. He wouldn't seek re-election. His presidency, once full of promise, ended with exhaustion, division, and heartbreak. But one of the strangest presidential stories ever recorded? It came earlier, much earlier. 7. John Tyler, the president without a party. John Tyler became president after William Henry Harrison died just 31 days into office. At first, people didn't even agree if Tyler was really president. Some called him his accidency. But the weirdness didn't stop there. Tyler vetoed so many bills from his own party that Congress basically kicked him out. His entire cabinet resigned. Newspapers roasted him daily. At one point, the White House received mail literally addressed to the acting president or whatever he calls himself. And here's the truly unbelievable twist. When the Civil War started years later, Tyler sided with the Confederacy, making him the only U.S. president to ever do so. His political career ended in controversy, so intense that the U.S. government didn't even honor him when he died. No flag at half-staff. No national mourning. Just silence. But as fascinating as these failures are, None of them compare to the presidency that still causes fierce debate, one remembered as both brilliant and deeply flawed. 8. George W. Bush, the presidency that changed the 21st century. After September 11th, the nation united behind President Bush. But the decisions that followed, especially the invasion of Iraq, remain some of the most debated and criticized in modern history. The intelligence was flawed, the planning was shaky, the aftermath was chaos, and the fallout reshaped global politics, foreign policy, and trust in government for a generation. Even years later, historians argue over how much blame Bush truly deserves. But there's no denying this. The consequences of those decisions still echo around the world. And yet, in the grand story of American presidents, there is one final character, one last name whose legacy is tangled, controversial, and unforgettable. 9. The unavoidable debate, Andrew Jackson. Some Americans see Andrew Jackson as a hero, a war general who fought for the common man. But others view his presidency as one of the darkest chapters in American leadership. From his harsh treatment of Native American communities to the forced removal known as the Trail of Tears, Jackson's decisions caused deep suffering that still weighs heavily on history. Jackson's presidency is a reminder that power, passion, and pride can create a legacy that's equal parts triumph and tragedy. His story forces America to confront the uncomfortable truth. Some leaders shaped the nation, but left deep scars behind. Now imagine that velvet-lined box again. Inside, it is a single sheet of paper, not real, but symbolic. A message whispered by history to every new president who steps into the Oval Office. Remember the ones who came before you. Remember how quickly power can crumble. Remember how one choice can change a nation forever. America has had great presidents, and some who nearly broke the country. But every one of them left behind a story, a warning, carved into the walls of the White House. And the next chapter? It might be stranger than all of this. If you love discovering these secrets, make sure to subscribe because what's coming next will blow your mind.